You know, usually when we talk about something like a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of absolute precision, right?
Oh, yeah, like engineering.
Exactly. Like you
Yeah.
break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points to it and says, "There it is. Here is the exact solution."
Right. Very clinical. Very straightforward.
But when it comes to gardening, the expectation isn't precision at all. The expectation is like sweat,
Yeah. Muddy boots.
muddy boots, a heavy metal spade, and just back-breaking labor.
It's true. It's a very combative mindset we have. We carry this collective cultural idea that we have to conquer the earth, by forcefully turning it over.
Right. Broken soil, broken back.
Exactly. We kind of equate physical exhaustion with doing the job correctly.
It's a clean narrative, but today we're looking at a completely different approach for our deep dive.
Hmm.
We're unpacking some really fascinating notes from a nature and innovation class.
Yeah, specifically following two students, Kesser and Steen.
Right. And they're setting up a No Dig KitchenGarden in Steen's backyard. And honestly, my absolute favorite part of this whole setup is Steen's dad.
Oh, Steen's dad is the best part of the whole source material.
He is, because he's super eager to participate in this big, innovative project, right? But his main contribution mostly consists of just sitting around in a lawn chair and doing absolutely nothing.
Which is brilliant,
Right.
because by doing nothing, or, well, at least doing significantly less, he is inadvertently demonstrating the core mechanism of the entire no-dig system.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I love the idea that just chilling in a lawn chair is actually cutting-edge science.
Right.
But this whole concept of doing nothing, it goes against like every gardening instinct we have. To understand why a no-dig garden feels so rebellious, we really have to look at why we're so obsessed with digging ourselves into the ground in the first place.
We do, because we carry this massive burden of tradition. You have to remember, for centuries, interacting with the soil wasn't some relaxing weekend hobby.
No, it was an intense, high-stakes endeavor. The historical context in these sources is wild.
Yeah.
They talk about how kitchen gardens used to be referred to as war gardens.
Yeah, growing food was practically a legal requirement for survival.
The stakes were so incredibly high. Like, even if you lived in a fifth-floor apartment in a city, the expectation was that you'd rip up your floorboards to grow vegetables if you had to.
Exactly. It highlights relationship with food production that was born out of sheer desperation
Yeah.
and duty.
Right.
You had to force your immediate environment to yield calories, or your family just didn't eat. It was an intensive, highly combative relationship with your living space.
And there was this detail about hops that I found hilarious, but also, very telling. You were basically mandated to grow hops in your garden.
Right. The hops mandate.
Yeah. Why? Because the king's men might come riding by and ask for water for their horses. And naturally, the men themselves would be thirsty.
For beer.
For beer. You had to be ready to brew beer at a moment's notice for the cavalry.
It paints a very vivid picture of gardening as a civic duty, right? A heavy obligation dictated from the top down.
So if it was a life or death obligation for centuries, of course it hardened into a rigid tradition. It's funny how a few centuries of top-down mandates can turn a survival tactic into an untouchable rule.
Yeah, we totally forget why we started doing it in the first place,
We really do.
which perfectly illustrates that brilliant piece of wisdom from Oma that Kesser and Steen highlight in their notes.
Oh yeah, Oma's wisdom. I love this part.
Traditionalists always want to stick to the old back-breaking ways of digging, and they completely forget Oma's wisdom, which is you create traditions by doing something new.
You create traditions by doing something new. That's so good.
Because every old way was once a brand new invention, right?
Uh.
Born out of necessity.
But wait, let me push back a little here. Because the actual ingredients of this no-dig method, like organics and compost, they aren't new concepts at all.
No, not at all.
The class notes even mention those old, fascinating video clips of the Dutch helping the English figure out how to make compost for London centuries ago.
Right, the Dutch were masters of it.
So if compost has been around literally forever, why do people resist this new no-dig method so fiercely today?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the hardest part of this entire system isn't physical. It's psychological.
The mindset shift.
Exactly. The hardest part is simply forgetting the old rules you thought were essential. As a culture, we have this deeply ingrained work ethic where we think that if we aren't suffering a little bit, we aren't earning the harvest.
Oh, wow. We feel guilty. Like, we look at a perfectly smooth bed of compost and think, well, I can't possibly get a perfect carrot out of that if my back doesn't ache first.
Precisely. Telling a traditional gardener they can get a better yield by not digging feels like telling them their past 3 decades of sweat were totally wasted.
It triggers a defensive response. Nobody wants to hear that they suffered for no reason. So, if we need to drop the guilt of not suffering, what's the actual model here? Because obviously, we aren't terrified of the king's cavalry anymore.
No, the cavalry isn't coming for our beer.
Right. But we still garden like we are running an industrial farming operation.
And that is the crux of the shift. The realization that you, in your backyard, are not a commercial farmer.
Yeah.
A commercial farm operates on scale,
Mm.
right? Logistics, heavy machinery. They have to turn the earth, plant in massive uniform rows, and harvest everything on the exact same day to ship it off to a distributor.
Right. And you, sitting at home, do not need to harvest 700 cabbages all at once on a random Tuesday in October.
What is a normal family going to do with 700 cabbages?
Nothing. You'd be eating coleslaw for a year.
Exactly. So the new paradigm is treating your backyard kitchen garden exactly like a grocery store.
I love this analogy from the sources.
It makes so much sense. You don't clear-cut the aisles of a grocery store, right? You just take your basket, wander through, and go shopping for your dinner.
I think we'll have a salad tonight. Let me grab a few leaves of lettuce, maybe pull up one beet. It's just a continuous, gentle interaction.
Exactly.
And the beauty of this for you, the listener, is the sheer control. You know exactly what is going into your family's dinner, but you get all that without the agonizing autumn ritual of digging up the entire garden.
Or the exhausting spring ritual of tilling it all back up again. It's a relationship, not an annual excavation project.
Okay, I hear the logic. I do. But this is where my brain gets stuck, and I'm sure anyone listening who is looking out at a stubborn patch of, like, Kentucky bluegrass in their yard is thinking the exact same thing.
Oh, the lawn problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I'm not digging up the soil to prepare it, how on earth do I actually make a garden bed out of a normal lawn? I mean, I can't just toss lettuce seeds onto my grass and hope they outcompete the weeds.
No, you certainly can't. And this brings us to the fundamental mechanical blueprint used by Kesser and Steen.
Okay.
You never dig down, you don't dig up the lawn, and you never turn the turf. Instead, you build up.
Build up. Okay, so we're talking about raised beds with, like, wooden frames.
You can use frames, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But even more naturally, you mimic a forest floor.
Mimic a forest floor.
Think about how a forest creates incredibly rich, fertile soil without anyone out there with a shovel.
Mm-hmm.
Leaves fall, organic matter decays on the surface, and it builds topsoil from the top down.
Oh, right. Nobody is tilling the woods.
Exactly. You replicate this by adding what they call top dressing.
Okay, this is the cardboard and compost trick. I was fascinated by this. You literally place compost directly on top of the ground.
Yep, straight on top.
Like if you have a lawn, you put down a thick layer of plain cardboard right over the grass, and then you just pile dark, rich compost right on top of it.
That's the method.
But hold on, cardboard, like old delivery boxes.
Yeah, regular brown cardboard. Just remove the tape.
But won't the roots of the vegetables I plant just, like, hit the cardboard and stop? Am I just creating a concrete ceiling for my carrots?
See, that's a common fear, but it ignores the microscopic mechanics of what's actually happening underground. The cardboard isn't a permanent barrier. It's a buffet.
A buffet? For what?
For the worms. When you lay down wet cardboard and cover it with compost, earthworms come up from the deep soil to investigate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They eat the decaying grass, they hit that decomposing cardboard, consume that as well, and leave behind nutrient-dense castings.
So the worms are basically doing the tilling for you.
Exactly. By the time your vegetable roots reach that depth a few weeks later, the cardboard is mostly gone. It's been completely digested and replaced by perfect aerated topsoil.
Okay, so the worms eat the cardboard. But what about the grass and the weeds that were already there? Does the cardboard just suffocate them?
It's simpler than that, really. It starves them of light.
Oh, just basic biology.
Right. Grass and weeds are plants, and plants require light to photosynthesize. The cardboard and that thick layer of compost act like a total blackout curtain.
So the grass just gives up.
It dies. And as a bonus, as it dies, it decomposes and feeds the soil right where it is.
That makes perfect sense for the existing grass. But wait, if I'm not digging, what about the millions of weed seeds that are already mixed into the dirt from years past?
This is where the science gets really, really elegant. When you dig with a shovel in a traditional garden, you're actually planting your next crop of weeds.
Wait, really, let me make sure I understand this. The soil is full of dormant weed seeds, right?
Yes. Millions of them.
sitting deep down where it's dark. So if I'm dragging a shovel through the dirt, I'm basically acting as an elevator for weed seeds.
That's a great way to put it.
I'm bringing them out of the dark basement right up to the penthouse where the sun is, and that triggers them to germinate.
That is exactly what you are doing. By digging to get rid of weeds, traditional gardeners are systematically ensuring they have a massive crop of new weeds to fight next month.
That is wild. We are literally planting our own problems.
We are. And we're destroying our unseen allies at the same time. When you invert the soil horizons with a spade, you are slicing through the fungal networks.
Okay, fungal networks. Are we talking about like mushrooms taking over the garden?
Well, not the mushrooms you see above ground. We're talking about mycorrhizal fungi.
Okay.
Think of them as a microscopic underground internet.
An underground internet. I love that.
It's true. These fungi attach to the roots of your vegetables and cast this massive web through the soil. They mine for water and nutrients far beyond where the plant's own roots can reach.
And they trade with the plants.
Exactly. They trade those nutrients to the plant in exchange for sugars.
So it's this incredibly complex symbiotic relationship.
Highly complex.
Right.
But when you take a rototiller or a shovel and churn up the earth, you are shredding that entire internet infrastructure to pieces.
Oh no, so the plants have to start completely from scratch every single spring.
Every single spring.
Which means Steen's dad, sitting in his lawn chair doing absolutely nothing, is actively protecting the underground internet.
He is. He's a hero.
He truly is the hero of this story. Now, of course, there will always be critics, right?
Oh, always.
People who point to highly specific anomalies. They'll say, well, my soil is heavily compacted clay from a recent construction site. I have to dig it.
Right. The what about this one very specific extreme scenario crowd?
Yeah, the what about isms.
And look, yes, if you are remediating a severely toxic site or breaking up extreme, unnatural, machine-crushed compaction, you might need to mechanically intervene once.
Once.
Just once.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the normal distribution curve. For the vast majority of backyard gardeners, across the vast majority of normal soil types, digging is just actively destructive to the soil web.
We can't let rare anomalies dictate our everyday gardening philosophy.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say we trust the process. The bed is built. We have our beautiful raised layer of compost sitting on top of the cardboard. The worms are happily eating the boxes. The weed seeds are asleep. And the underground internet is thriving.
Sounds perfect.
How do we actually get the vegetables in? Because if we aren't digging rows, we aren't just drawing a line with a stick and pouring seeds in, right?
Right. And this requires another mindset shift, because a thick layer of compost sitting on the surface of the ground can take a while to warm up in the early spring.
Okay, so it's cold.
Yeah, and direct sowing seeds straight into cold compost often leads to really poor germination. So instead of waiting, we hack the seasons.
The sources call this the cheat start method.
Yes, the cheat start. While you are waiting for that outdoor garden bed to warm up, you pre-cultivate almost everything indoors.
Okay, walk me through the actual logistics of this. We're talking about utilizing your windowsills, right?
Yes, you start your seeds early in small trays using mini pots or little soil plugs.
Pubs.
Right. This gives the plants a massive head start. They spend their most vulnerable first few weeks in a warm, controlled, predator-free environment.
Oh, that makes sense. No slugs, no sudden frosts.
Exactly. So by the time the outdoor compost is warm enough, you aren't planting a fragile little seed. You're planting a robust, established little plant with a strong root system.
Okay, but this transition from the indoor plug to the outdoor compost, this brings up one of the funniest semantic debates in the No Dig community.
Oh, the great trowel controversy.
Yes. I read this in the notes and I actually laughed out loud. Because critics will look at this no-dig system and say, aha, if I have to use a small hand trowel to put my indoor plug plant into the outdoor compost, I am making a hole. Isn't that technically digging?
You're a fraud.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like they think they've unraveled the whole philosophy with one question.
It's purely semantics, and it completely ignores the physical mechanics of what's happening. We really need to clarify the difference here.
Please do.
Pushing soft, uncompacted compost aside to make a small depression just large enough to fit your plug is entirely different from turning or tilling the earth.
It's the difference between doing like minimally invasive laser surgery and performing surgery with a chainsaw.
That is a perfect analogy. Both are technically opening things up, but the impact on the biological system is completely different.
Right.
With the trowel, you just gently part the compost, place the plug, and water it so the surrounding soil closes tight around the roots.
So you haven't inverted the soil horizons.
No, you
Yeah.
haven't brought those dormant weed seeds to the surface, and you haven't destroyed the fungal networks. You are just slotting a new participant into an existing ecosystem.
Decision placement.
Exactly.
Right.
And because you're using these pre-grown plugs instead of direct sowing, it allows you to employ another highly strategic tip from Kesser and Steen's notes.
Succession planting.
Yes. The strategy is to constantly make more plants indoors than you immediately have space for outside.
Which initially sounds like a recipe for overcrowded chaos. I mean, if my bed is full, why am I growing more plugs on my windowsill?
Well, think back to our grocery store paradigm.
Right, shopping in the backyard.
If you are constantly shopping in your garden, pulling a carrot here, harvesting a head of lettuce there, you are constantly creating vacancies in the soil.
Oh, I see. You harvest ahead of early spring lettuce, and boom, there's an empty 6-inch gap in your bed.
Exactly. And if you're direct sowing, you drop a seed in that gap and wait a month just to see a tiny sprout.
But if you have a plug waiting patiently on your windowsill,
You just pop the pre-grown plug right into the gap.
hmm.
You continuously mix different plants together in the rows over a long period.
So as one crop finishes, another is instantly taking its place.
Less work, more yield.
Yeah.
You are maximizing the efficiency of your space without ever needing to clear cut and dig up an entire row.
It really is a completely different way of interacting with the space.
Yeah.
So, what does this all mean for us? When we step back and look at Kesser and Steen's organic garden adventure and this easy approach they've mapped out from their class, it proves something profound, I think.
It really does.
It proves that sometimes doing less is actually the greatest innovation of all. As the notes beautifully put it, it's all one big puzzle.
Yeah, a puzzle. You build the foundation, you place your desired plants, and you wait. You let nature do the heavy lifting. And if we connect this back to you, the listener, this no-dig garden is so much more than just a horticultural technique to get better carrots.
Right.
It is a masterclass in efficiency and challenging assumptions. It proves that just because a process like sweating over a shovel has always been difficult doesn't mean the difficulty is what creates the value.
That is a huge takeaway. We get so attached to the struggle that we convince ourselves the struggle is the product.
We really do.
We think the backache is the proof of our dedication. But Steen's dad had it right all along. His main contribution was restraint.
Restraint is key.
And in a no-dig system, that restraint, that absolute refusal to tear up the earth just to prove you are working hard, is exactly what allows the ecosystem to thrive.
We often confuse effort with effectiveness. The traditional gardener puts in maximum effort for a system that constantly fights back with new weeds and depleted soil.
Well, the no-dig gardener
Puts in initial, thoughtful design. Laying the cardboard, placing the compost, cultivating the plugs indoors,
Yeah.
and then steps back.
I think we all need to channel Steen's dad a little more often. Just sit in the lawn chair and let the underground internet do the work.
Highly recommend it.
And that brings us to a final thought for you to take away today. If generations of gardeners wasted their energy digging up the earth, destroying their soil's health, and fighting weeds they themselves planted, all just because it was tradition, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
What other exhausting, mandatory routines in your own life or work are you rigidly sticking to simply because you haven't yet tried laying down some cardboard and building on top of it?